You're listening to the Crack It Cold podcast, where we interview inspiring individuals and ask them what they do and why they do it. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Crack It Cold, where you can find other creative media projects.
Today on Can 5, you'll hear from special guest Paul Souza.
Paul Souza is joining us today. Very excited. Me and JJ are really looking forward to having a great conversation with Paul.
Absolutely. As am I.
And, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I first met Paul actually at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis, and you were a supervisor out there coaching, and I got the pleasure of being an intern for the summer, and I had a really good conversation with you.
I remember that.
And I took some notes on it, and I just remembered thinking, wow, this guy has a lot of knowledge. He's got a lot of great stories. So we're really looking forward to, diving deep and picking into that. So really
probably more stories than knowledge.
There you go. So really, to get us started, you were a Penn State athlete.
I was.
So you want to tell us a little bit about your experience at Penn State, what you did, maybe what you majored in?
Sure. I was a broadcast communications major, and I was a member of the track and field team there. And that was kind of my thing.
Okay.
Got recruited. It was kind of funny. Penn State was sort of an afterthought for me. I was going to sign with Boston University. They had a coach there named John Thomas, who was the first man to ever jump 7 feet in the high jump indoors, which was my event, the high jump. So I figured, well, I want to be coached by that guy. So I was all set to sign with BU, and then maybe a week before signing day, I got a letter in the mail from Penn State. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in the weight room in my high school, and my high school gym teacher came out, and he was also my high school track coach. And he was like, hey, the coach from Penn State sent you a letter, and I want you to come for a visit. And I was like, I'm all set. I'm going to BU. I'm good.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you get 5 visits, and you got 1 left, and they're paying for it. So, might as well go down and take a look. It won't hurt. So I brought it home, and my father said, we can go. I'll take you. We'll drive down there one weekend. And so, and I drove down there, and from the time I stepped out of the car to the time I got back in the car to drive home, I just fell in love with the place. And got back and made the decision I was going to sign there. And I signed there on New Year's Day when Penn State was playing Alabama for the national championship. I'm not going to tell you what year, because then you'll know how old I am. And I signed my letter of intent that day. So it's pretty cool.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, being an athlete in college, I heard that you might have a record there at Penn State. Is this true?
Okay, now I'm going to have to tell you how old I am. I still have the Penn State indoor high jump record. And last month, that record turned 40 years old.
Wow.
So
that's a legacy right there. Paul Souza legacy. That's
so
fantastic.
If you go to Penn State, if you go to the Penn State Sports Museum and go to the track and field display, you'll see a big picture on the wall and a little write-up about it.
Yeah. So I want to ask you another question. Being in college, we're in college right now, and we're really excited to learn from people who, like I said, have experiences. So if you had to share one piece of advice with us or someone in their early 20s at this point in life, what would that advice look like?
Time management. Okay. Can't stress that enough.
2 words.
Time management.
Right.
College students, I always say this, I have 3 boys. 2 of them graduated from college, already married, and I have a younger son who's in high school right now. And, I always say to them, school and athletics is practice for life. And so if you can't be successful in school and athletics, you're going to have a tough time in life, because life will not give you second chances. Mm-hmm. School and athletics will. And so you have an opportunity at this point in your life to experience lots of things. It doesn't have to be athletics. It could be school and whatever else you're involved in, whether it's arts or, maybe you're in a science or math club or anything. but the time management and being able to allot enough time for everything to be able to be successful at it I think is just so important.
Wow.
And Ken, I know obviously through your experiences throughout college and working at the Children's Museum, networking. I feel like that's something that I've really tried to work on, and I know Willie has too, throughout our early 20s. And can you speak on the importance of networking and getting to know new faces and how you present yourself?
Absolutely. I fancy myself, you'll laugh at this, as a collector of people. And so anytime I am anywhere, I'm trying to get to know the people around me. If I'm sitting on a plane, if I'm on a bus, or if I'm in a room full of strangers, I want to know who they are. I want to know what they do. I want to know how I can contact them in the future, because I never know, or you never know where life's path is going to take you. There are all these divergent paths. Right. And so you never know when, hey, I met this person who has some, interest in this or has some knowledge of this. I'm going to contact them. And I happen to have their card here or their, and I've done that throughout my life, and I cannot tell you, it's been just a wonderful experience getting to know all these people from these different backgrounds and all the different stuff that they do, but also how I've been able to levy them as I've gotten older as contacts for things that I, have ended up doing in my life, down one of those divergent paths. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
As you go through life, don't go through life in a shell, Get to know the people around you, get to know what they do. And get to know them as people, because they'll appreciate that a lot more than you just wanting to know them for a contact. And you never know when one of those people might be able to help you down the road.
Exactly. No, that's exactly, I think, what we're trying to do, especially with this. This is something that we want to produce and make for other people to see, and advice like that, I think, is just kind of what we're looking for, obviously.
Well, this is a great thing.
Yeah,
we didn't have anything like this when I was in school.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you guys. This is Saturday. You guys could be out, having fun at a party somewhere or hanging out with your friends or whatever. And to put something like this together and to maintain it, and it takes a lot of work. It takes some resilience, and I just love the fact that you guys are doing this, and I think it's really important, and this will pay off for you, down the road.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Absolutely. Yeah. And I also want to touch on the habits of success. Now, we'll dive into this later, but you're in a band, and you obviously went to Penn State, were a very successful high jumper. You've been very successful in your career. And what do you feel like your habits that you've tried to make over this span or this time, what are those habits of success that you can self-consciously think of and that you try to preach to other people, I guess, throughout your career?
I was very fortunate going through my life, but also my coaching career and my music career, to have amazing mentors. And they taught me many, many things, but the couple things that stand out. The first is sit down and write out a plan for your success. Now, there was a point in my life, I was a young man, I was in a band, we got signed by Columbia Records. I was teaching, I was coaching, I am by no means an artist, but I used to enjoy painting. Okay. And so I was in this art collaborative, and we would paint and do, you see people get together and do paintings and stuff like that. We'd do all that stuff. And just involved in a whole bunch of different stuff, and really not doing any of it really well. There's an old saying, what do they say? Jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah. And so I remember during this time, one of my mentors calling me and saying, what have you been up to? What's going on? And so I told him, I'm doing this. The band just got signed. I'm doing this teaching. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. So he asked me a question. And he said to me, what is it that you want to do? And so I said, well, I just told you what I was doing. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. Wow. And he said, no. He said, listen to the question. What is it that you want to do? So I started to think about it, and I was like, well, the teaching thing was really getting stale because I was in a place where there weren't a lot of resources, and the kids came from troubled homes, and you felt like every time you made progress with them in school, it would get destroyed when they go home. So you felt like every day was day one. And so that got kind of frustrating. And then the music thing, the band wasn't where I quite wanted it to be, and I could have put a little more into that, more time and energy into that. We had some fractured relationships and stuff like that were going on that were making things difficult.
Right.
So I was kind of like, and then the art thing, I really felt at the time I really wanted to go take some art lessons and get better at it because I enjoyed doing it, but I didn't really have time for that. And the new thing that I had started was coaching. I was coaching track, I was coaching in the high school, and our team was doing really well, and I was really kind of stoked about that. And so I told my mentor all this stuff, and so he said to me, here's what you got to do. He said, you got to quit teaching. You got to get out of that art collaborative thing. You got to decide what you want to do with regard to your band. And he said, and right now, based on what you're telling me, you need to find a job where you can coach track full time. And then you need to sit down a plan and write out a plan for that. Wow. And you need to go after that plan with fanatical pursuit. I'll never forget it. Fanatical pursuit. And he said to me, you can't let anybody or anything get in the way of what it is you want to do.
Wow.
So I ended up quitting teaching. The band broke up, ended up getting out of the art thing, and decided, all right, I'm going to try and find a job somewhere. And this school in Massachusetts, Division III school, Wheaton College, was looking for a track coach.
Yeah.
The downside of it was part-time.
Okay.
So I went, I applied. There were only 2 people applied, and they offered it to the other person, and he turned it down because the money was so bad. So they came back to me, and they offered it to me, and I said, sure, I'll take it. So had an interesting interview with the athletic director, and basically he was like, you're never going to be full-time. The president of the school hates track. All this, it was like negative. Just be happy that you have a coaching job.
Yeah.
Thing. Mm-hmm. And so I get into my office the first week, and my phone rang. And hello, Coach Souza, Wheaton College track and field. And it was my mentor. And he said, hey, Coach Souza, how you doing? And I was like, hey, Coach, how you been? I'm good. He said, so what are you up to? I said, well, you must have heard I took this job coaching track at Wheaton College, and I'm pretty excited about it, and looking forward to getting to college track again. And then he said to me, what is it that you want to do? And so I said, well, I just told you what I was doing, And he said, no, listen to the question. What is it that you want to do? So I said, So I thought, well, when I was a high school track coach, our goal was to try to win the state championship, and we won a couple of those, and so that was pretty cool. And so I thought, geez, well, now that I'm a college track coach, it'd be really cool to maybe try to win a national championship.
Right.
Right.
So he said to me, how are you going to do it? I said, I have no idea. So he said, well, here's what you need to do. You need to sit down, and you need to write out a plan for your success, and then you need to follow that plan with fanatical pursuit.
Fanatical pursuit. Can you touch on that? What does that mean to you?
Fanatical pursuit is, what fanatical means, like almost maniacal.
Yeah.
The word fan comes from fanatic.
Okay.
And that is, as he said, you can't let anybody or anything get in the way of you achieving your goal. And that was his word. He said, fanatical pursuit. You have to be a maniac about it. Awesome. So I sat down in my office, and I had a big whiteboard, and I sat there, and I went on my computer, and I looked up the last 10 years of the NCAA track and championships. And I averaged out what the score you would have to score to win a national championship. And then I took each of the events, and I took all the places, and I averaged out what the performances would be to have to place first, second, third, all the way down to be able to score in the national championship meet. And I put that on the whiteboard, and then I went out and just started recruiting. And I started looking for kids who were in that range that we could coach up and get to that point.
That's really great.
And then 4 years later, we won our first national championship.
First of many, right? With you.
We ended up winning 8.
You won 8.
Wow.
And that is a huge accomplishment. And I must say, one of the questions I would love to ask you, as somebody who's been around that culture of championships, what is the most common theme that the athletes have, like the mindset that they have when they are, working towards championship and you're helping guide them? What's the one thing that they all had in common as a championship team?
Can I add something to my story quick, and then I'll answer that question because it'll make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
A sports magazine called and said, as far as we can tell, this is the fastest rise of a program. See, when I got to the school, they didn't have a track program, so I started it. They had a club.
So you actually started the program.
Started the program. And then 4 years later, we're the national champs. They said, this is the fastest rise of a program from having no program to winning an NCAA championship in the history of college sports.
Wow.
So the guy asked me, how did you do it? And my answer was, it was the easiest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And he was like, what? And I said, I sat down and I wrote out a plan and I followed my plan, and I didn't let anything get in the way of achieving that plan. But getting back to your question, the one major thing that was important and that I had to have was a buy-in, and that is the athletes had to believe. And so belief is the answer to that question. Belief.
They had to believe they're capable.
That we are capable of doing this. And so I saw your question on here of those 8 national championship teams. What did they all have in common?
Yeah.
They all had an unwavering belief that they could not be beaten. And that's...
Wow. And that's belief in you. That's belief in
the culture.
The culture
that we created in practice and at the school was we have one singular goal, and that's we're going to win the national championship, and we're all charging toward that goal.
That is
with fanatical
incredibly
pursuit.
Motivating to hear. I mean, if you just think about, like, in terms of life, like, if you believe
is everything,
and you go at it with fanatical pursuit, you have your plan, you can do anything.
Yep. That's it. And I've used that plan in everything I've done in my life, and I've had success in just about everything I've done in my life.
Wow.
Through. And I don't mean that to sound, I was lucky to have great mentors who taught me, many amazing things. But my advice to you young people out there is sit down and write out a plan for your success. Okay? Yeah. What is it that you want to do? There's that question. And then put your plan together to achieve that, and then go after it with fanatical pursuit. Do not get caught up in distractions and things that will take away from that.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely curious, who did you develop this mindset? I know you talked about your mentors and the impact they had on your life, but has this just been a mindset that you have developed from the time that you were an athlete to now, or is this something that was instilled in you as a kid? Because I feel like just hearing you talk about it is extremely inspiring, and I'm just curious to hear kind of, how did you develop this yourself, or was there a specific person that you had in mind that kind of helped you instill this in your mind?
Well, there were several people throughout my life. Like I said, I was very lucky. I had great teachers, great coaches, great mentors. And so it was sort of a combination of all of them.
Okay, yeah.
And through the things that they taught me, I was able to sort of develop this mindset. And, there are many, many things that they taught me that I want to tell you that we just don't have the time for here today. But we can touch on a few more of them, as we go through the questions. But, I hope that you're all lucky enough and fortunate enough to find people that inspire you, and that, like my high school English teacher. Now, here's a great story. My next oldest brother passed away not too long ago. He had cancer, and I went to his wake, and when I was there, this guy walked in, and he was kind of gesturing and being a little bit loud, and his mask kept falling down over his, his mouth, and I'm like, who is this guy? And I'm looking at him, and I'm like, oh my God, it's my high school English teacher.
Wow.
The greatest teacher I ever had in my entire life. I hadn't seen him in almost 40 years. And he's 91 years old, 92 years old. He got in a car and drove 2.5 hours from Rhode Island to come up to my brother's funeral wake. So my brother was one of his favorite students. Wow. And I had a chance to sit down and talk with him, and I actually had a chance to tell him how much he meant to me in my life, and that there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think of something that he said to me or taught me. And to see him and still alive and still, it was amazing. And, a great moment for me that happened not too long ago. But to be able to see him again and share how I felt about him and what he meant to me in my life was a huge thing.
Wow.
Huge thing. So, I am fortunate. Not everybody has an opportunity to have great teachers and mentors. I was very lucky. I kind of sought these people out. I could kind of tell the teachers who were really into it and who really were just there to kind of collect a check. And I really kind of gravitated toward the ones who seemed to have a passion for what they were doing. And I just asked them a lot of questions, and somewhere along the line they're going to say something that's going to go, bam, yeah, that makes sense, Yeah. And,
another question I have for you is, so coming out of college, going into, life at an early age, what are some ways that we could take advantage of the time that we have while we're still young?
Any type of practical experience that you can get. Internships and stuff. I always make the joke. I had 2 sets of friends in college. I had friends who during the summer would go to the beach, and they get a job working as a bouncer in a club, and they party all summer and had a great time, and summers were awesome. And then I had a group of friends who during the summer would take internships and go out and get practical experience and work experience for when they graduated. And I used to make the joke that now all my friends who worked at the beach are all working from paycheck to paycheck trying to make ends meet. And all my friends who did internships now have houses on the beach.
Yeah.
So,
Wow, it's funny how that works.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So let's talk about what you're doing today.
Yeah.
You've got a band. Let's talk about this band. I want to know, why don't you just kind of give them a shout out, talk about how you guys started, how long you've been together, what you're up to, what you're going to be doing next Saturday on ESPN.
This is another great story.
Yeah. So
I've been a musician my whole life. Since I was little, I've been singing. That's my passion. And so I've been signed to Columbia Records, Atlantic Records, Warner Brothers Records. Each one got worse. But
that fell.
Oh. Sorry about that. Let's see. Yeah.
There you go. By the way, folks, we're on Crack It Cold, in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
Little technical mishap here. We'll get it fixed up right for you.
No big deal.
Not at all.
Hope we won't fall again. We'll be okay.
We fight through adversity.
That's right.
We fight
Resilience. I love it. Music.
Yes, music.
Been a singer, sung in many different bands, and I've played and toured, and it's been an amazing experience. It's really my passion. And so when I got here, I moved to Indianapolis in 2012, I think it was, 12 or 13, sometime around then. And I put put a couple bands together when I was here, just because it's something I love to do, and met some really great musicians. And I was in a band called Velveteen Playboys. You guys can look at that up, Spotify, Pandora, or all that stuff. And when I got the drummer on our first CD, which was called Cosmic Lounge, was a guy named Mike Malinin, who's the drummer for the Goo Goo Dolls. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that band. So when I got to Indianapolis, I'm driving down the street one day, and I get a little ping on my phone, and it's a text from Mike, and he says, Paul, this is John. John, this is Paul. You guys should hang out. So one day I text this guy, John, and say, hey, you want to go meet for a cup of coffee? And he was like, yeah sure, let's do it. So we went down to a little coffee shop in Broad Ripple and had breakfast and started talking, and found out we both had this profound love of 80s music. So that was kind of where we started from. And so it turns out John is actually Johnny Rabb, who was the drummer for the band Collective Soul. If you guys don't know Collective Soul, go Google it. They've had many, many radio hits. They were really huge in the 1990s. So John and I found some great musicians who I had already played with in other bands here in town. A guy named Joe Harrison, guitar player and keyboard player, who's just one of the best musicians I've ever worked with, and a phenomenal bass player, Nathan Gray. And so we put together a band called NU80, and we started to do covers of the keyboard-driven music of the 1980s.
Okay.
So we rehearsed this band for a year and finally got it to where we were ready to debut. So we set up a show at the Vogue, and it was going to be May 3rd or May 6th or somewhere around there in 2020.
COVID. And
COVID hit, and everything shut down. And then John got COVID, our drummer, and then I got COVID, and I almost died. I had it very badly. I was in the hospital. I was on oxygen for a long period of time. And so while I was in isolation, I think I was in for about 20 days on oxygen, I started writing original music and sharing it with Joe, our guitar player, over my phone. And so over the phone, the four of us started writing songs for an original record. And we, in February of 2021, we flew down to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we recorded this album with a 3-time Grammy Award-winning producer, Bob St. John. And we're releasing the album next week. And the album is appropriately titled Vaccine.
Wow. That's
so
awesome.
Look for NU80 Vaccine. You can go, you can get the album at nu80band.com. And we got an offer. So next Saturday, we're going to be playing live on ESPN. So it'll be Saturday, the 12th of February from 10 a.m. to noon. We'll be on the broadcast, and they're going to feature one of our songs on the.
That's awesome.
One of our originals.
Everybody go check that out. You got to check it out. That's
pretty cool.
That is fantastic.
Very cool. Very, very cool.
That is freaking great.
What's really cool is Puma is one of the sponsors of the show. And so Puma has given the band these retro 80s Puma sweats. So we're going to be wearing those on stage.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
so
great.
Pretty cool stuff.
So exciting and so neat to see like how that all plays out. And I think in terms of like journeys going throughout your life and on a journey, I mean, is there like a common theme that just kind of has taken you through life that you think really keeps you grounded?
Yes. One of my great mentors, Mike Corbett, who was the vice president and head of A&R for Columbia Records, it's now Sony Music. He signed my band Beat Surrender out of the long time ago.
We won't mention that.
And Mike took me out to dinner one time and started talking to me about the music industry, and basically painted a picture of just how horribly bad an industry it is, and how it's run by thieves and crooks, and how it's, and I sat there and I'm this young guy and I just signed a record deal with these guys and I'm like, why are you telling me this?
Yeah.
Right.
And so basically he, we were having dinner, and at the end of dinner he was like, do you know why I'm telling you this? And I was like, no. And he said, here's why. He said, I'm going to give you the greatest piece of advice you're ever going to get in your life. And he was right. And I'm going to give that to you guys right now, because you just pay it forward, pass it on. And he said to me, to hell with the record label, to hell with being famous, to hell with making money and being rich, all that stuff. He said, fall in love with the process. He said, if you fall in love with the process of writing music, performing music, and just being all about that, then he said, then you will have a successful career, no matter if you're famous or if you're rich or anything. He said, as long as you love what you're doing and you're doing it with people that you want to do it with, and you're creating and producing something, he said, don't focus on the results, focus on the process.
Wow.
And I've put that to use in everything I've done in my life, and I've had a great life.
Wow.
It's been a lot of fun because I've really enjoyed the process of everything that I've done.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I know we've talked a lot about, what you've done well and what you've succeeded at, and what are the motives behind that. Do you want to share with us maybe a story of a time that you failed, or a time that maybe if you had to redo over in your life, how would you go about that?
Yeah. I would have been a little easier on my kids growing up. I was tough on my kids, and that was tough. And I treated them like my dad treated me, and you sort of learn parenting from your parents. You learn how to, and also how not to do certain things. And I think that's an area that I was not or could have been a lot better at, and have some regrets there.
Okay.
No, yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's something, I think learning from failures is something that is not easy for especially me, and I know like as kids our age, or as young adults, learning from these failures is something that's it's hard to process. And I look at some of the failures I've had or lessons I've had, and I think like me, how can I learn from this and move on, but not actually taking the time to just sit down and think about what's happened in the moment and like right after it's happened, I guess.
A lot of people dwell on failure, and I'm working with a group right now called the Positive Coaches Alliance, and they talk about the elm tree of mastery, and I'm a firm believer of this right now. And the elm tree of mastery focuses on three things. The first is effort, and to me, effort is everything. If you are giving all of your effort into something and you fail, you have failed valiantly. You have failed with dignity and with pride, because you gave everything you had. You gave your effort, okay? And so that effort, whether it's successful or unsuccessful, is worth praising, okay? The second thing, and the L of the elm tree, E is effort, L is learning. Learn something every day. Always be a constant learner, because that's how you grow as a person. And so I think the L part of that is very important, whether it's in sports, whether it's in life, whether it's in anything. Always make sure that you're learning. Be a sponge, ask questions, get everything you can from the people that you met in terms of what they know. And the third thing, though, is the big one, and that's the M, and that is mistakes are okay. Because without making mistakes, we don't learn and grow. And so you have to learn to just brush a mistake off, and too many people dwell on it. I used to be that way, and I used to do that to my kids. I used to, get on them every time they made a mistake. Yeah. You got to do better. You got to be perfect. You got to no, you got to give effort. As long as you're trying your hardest, that is worthy of praise.
Yeah. Earlier, and you just mentioned, absorbing knowledge.
Yeah.
And earlier you mentioned that you just have a collection of people so when you meet, And so, where are some places that you've gone? I mean, have you like traveled places and kind of capture that, well, meeting new people, absorbing knowledge, absorbing experience, or just different like cultures? Have you had some cool experiences traveling?
I have. I was very fortunate through music and through my work as a coach for USA Track and Field. I've been in just about every state in this country, and I've been almost every country in the world, almost.
Wow.
Favorite places, Budapest, Hungary, Zagreb, Croatia, great place. Spain, loved Spain, have been all over Europe, all over.
Wow. That's wild.
That
is wild.
And again, I try to be a sponge. I try to learn, and you meet so many different people in different cultures, and you see, where people's differences are, but more importantly, you see how much we're the same.
Yeah. How old were you like when you made some of these trips? Were you younger? Some
of them were younger, some of them were older. I've been traveling extensively since probably the time I was like 24 to up to now.
Were you married at the time?
Through some of it, yeah, not all of it.
Just out of curiosity, what is the largest crowd you've ever played in front of in your band?
75,000 people.
Where was that at?
Gillette. It was Foxborough Stadium where the New England Patriots play. Played the first Earth Day Festival in 1991, I think it was.
That's fantastic.
Was that NU80 at the time? Or
that was a band, Beat Surrender.
Okay.
That was the band that signed in Columbia. Yep. So, I played Madison Square Garden. I played Birdland, which is probably the most famous nightclub in the world. It's on Broadway in New York City. Played Grant Park in Chicago. A lot of cool places.
So do you guys ever perform locally here in Indy? Like
I have.
Small shows?
Yeah,
Where
we played the Slippery Noodle.
Oh,
We've played,
yes. Okay.
let's see, we have played.
The Rathskeller? I saw you over at the Rathskeller.
Yeah, I've been there twice. We played outdoors on the Athenaeum.
That's such a beautiful place.
It's my favorite outdoor venue.
When next time you're there, I want to know.
Yeah.
I want to be in that.
I want to come see you play.
Gotta go see you.
Yeah, they want us to try to build a following there. I think it would be a fun place for us.
That would be great.
Yep. So if you like keyboard-based 80s music, come see NU80 at the Rathskeller.
This is the man
right here.
Gotta do it.
What else? So now I feel very fortunate. I retired as a coach and got really bored in my retirement. And so my wife said to me, why don't you find something to do? I was like, I don't want to do anything. So my old curmudgeon-y self. And there was an opening for part-time coaches at the Children's Museum in the Sports Legends experience. So a friend of my wife, who actually worked with her at USA Track and Field, became the director there. So she said, I know the director. Why don't you put your resume in? So I did, and they called me up, and I went over and did an interview, and they hired me, and I started working as a part-time coach in the Sports Legends experience, and it was the best summer of my life.
That's awesome.
Had an absolute blast.
That's awesome.
And being able to just coach kids and help them out and give them basic skills in all kinds of different sports kind of renewed my my love of coaching. And so I was fortunate enough, they asked me to come on full time, and I did. So I've been working there full time and trying to build up the RSLE to be sort of a special sports experience for young kids. And pretty excited about some of the things that we're doing there.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
And I was fortunate. That's how, like I mentioned earlier, that's how we met.
Yeah.
I was there one summer as an intern.
Did a great job.
Also really enjoyed my time. Are you guys looking to hire more people for the summer?
We are. We're looking for part-time coaches. And that's young people out of college, but also if there are any retired teachers out there, we look for retired teachers because you have teaching experience, and this is a lot more fun than teaching because you don't have to, you're only dealing with kids for like 10 or 15 minutes and then they move on to the next experience. So it's a lot of fun.
So we'll have to put a link in our comments
Oh, yeah,
that
that'd be
folks
great.
can see, where they might be able to apply, because I know, we've got a lot of young kids around this age
Yep.
that might be interested.
We
in
actually
that,
have
so.
stuff up right now. We're looking for young
good.
coaches, and we have internships there as well. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
That's great.
Well, I'm getting involved right now. Here's another thing. I'm sending you guys down a rabbit hole. Check out the Aspen Institute. It's basically a think tank of just the most amazing people around the world, and they get together to try to solve the world's problems, basically. But they have a whole sports and fitness arm to it, and it's pretty interesting. And I get involved in this thing called Project Play, and it's kind of rethinking sports for young people. And that's kind of the thing we're doing at the Children's Museum right now is, wanting to create experiences for young kids so they can experience sports at a purely fun level, no rules or coaches yelling at you or whatever. It's just come out and try it and have fun with it. And then also to introduce kids to sports they might not necessarily have a chance to be exposed to, like hockey or tennis or whatever. So having a lot of fun doing that right now. And that kind of got me involved with the PCA and also this thing called Coaching Core. So you can go to all these. It's aspeninstitute.org, PCA.org, and I think it's coachingcore.org or .com. I'm not sure. I think it's .org. But there's a lot of great stuff in there, and there's these free certification classes that you can take on how to coach kids, how to coach girls, how to have empathy for kids in sports, and just it opened my eyes to a whole new way of looking at coaching. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, and do you feel like, as far as coaching, I mean, I grew up, like, my father was a coach, my grandpa was a coach.
Oh, that's great.
It's been something that's impacted my life a lot, and I think it's something that it requires a certain amount of not only time but effort, as you mentioned, and enthusiasm and empathy. And do you feel like coaching has kind of, throughout your career, obviously, like, do you feel like coaching has helped you kind of become more of like an empathetic, an influencer, and like kind of how you have gone, like you said, about going to the Children's Museum? And do you feel like coaching has ultimately had a huge impact on allowing you to do that?
Absolutely. I'm a completely different coach now than I was 30 years ago. And like everything, you evolve. Kids evolve, so kids are different now than they were 20, 30 years ago. So you can't, you can have the same expectations, but you got to go about it a different way. And it's been an amazing journey for me and very eye-opening. And but yeah, there's like everything. There's a great quote. I love this quote. It's, if you don't change, you don't grow, and if you don't grow, you're not really living. To think a new thought, to utter a new sound, or to try a new idea is what people fear the most, when the real fear should be the opposite.
Wow.
And I think that if I said anything else here today, I think that's probably the most important thing I said is, think and change and grow,
Very wonderful closing remarks.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to end. I mean, if there's anything else you guys would like to share or ask, we can, but we really appreciate your time, Paul.
I really enjoyed my time here, and I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you.
It was great. Yeah, you're very, very inspiring, and I think this is going to touch a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So,
like I said, if you, I go around the country and I speak a lot to coaches, and one of the things whenever I start one of my talks, I say is, if there's one thing that I say here that, turns the light on, then this is worthwhile. So if there was anything that I said here at all that could help anybody out, you pay it forward. I learned from great mentors, and I try to pass on the things that they taught me.
That's awesome. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.